Pokemania has infected generation after generation and maintained itself as a consistent part of gaming culture. Despite launch woes, Pokemon seems to be undefeatable at launching games to commercial success. These are the 10 best-selling Pokemon games of all time. The first entry on the Nintendo Switch and the first big console RPG for Pokemon since the days of the GameCube, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are treated as a sort of sequel to Pokemon Yellow. Much like the Game Boy Classic, Team Rocket includes icons Jesse and James, and your partner Pokemon will follow you. This Return to Kanto also featured a capturing mechanic inspired by the 2016 hit Pokemon Go. Good for newcomers, a downside for veterans. The last generation that debuted on Nintendo DS, Pokemon Black and White, sees trainers journey to the American-inspired region of Unova. At the time of their release, these entries were controversial as they decided to do a semi-reboot, introducing 156 original brand new Pokemon and locking all familiar mons to the postgame. One of the best-selling games on the Game Boy Advance, the first games in Gen 3 saw the series evolve to not be beholden to including every Pokemon introduced so far. With a map full of water routes, Hoenn also held a lot of water-type Pokemon for players to meet and add to their party. Pokemon Sun and Moon released in 2016 for the Nintendo 3DS and came just a few months after Pokemon Go changed the world, having the benefit of a nostalgia-filled marketing campaign, new Alolan forms for Gen 1 Pokemon, like Ninetales, and a new wave of Pokemania. The game sold quite well. The first Pokemon games for the Nintendo 3DS and the first mainline games to be made from the ground up in 3D, Pokemon X and Y were a big deal at the time of their release. Introducing the fan-favorite Mega Evolution mechanic, old favorites found new life, along with 72 new Pokemon to the region. The first games for the massively successful DS, it's no surprise that Pokemon Diamond and Pearl were big sellers. Gen 4 saw players enter the snowy region of Sinnoh, face off against a difficult champion, and experience a time and space warping story. The second Pokemon games ever released, fans who grew up in the original wave of Pokemania still hold Gold and Silver as the best generation the series has seen, featuring not one, but two full regions to explore. In many ways, these games are all about refining what was great about the original entries. The most recent entries in the Pokemon series, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, are on track to come for the throne. Despite a controversial launch full of technical issues, these games struck a chord with players, as they were the first true open-world entries, and have folks excited for future generations. Depending on who you ask, Pokemon Sword and Shield are the first real Pokemon games to release on a home console. The 3D adventure to the UK-inspired Galar region embraced the visual style of Sun and Moon, just made everything a lot more crisp. Despite a controversy surrounding a cut to the total number of Pokemon that would be included in these games' national decks, they went on to be the second best sellers in the series so far. The games that started it all and are the reason Pokemon is the highest grossing IP in the world, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green, remain the best-selling entries in the series. For the first entries in a Megaton franchise, Game Freak managed to define so much that remains true to the series' core identity to this day. We'll just have to wait and see if any future Pokemon games can dethrone the top Mabosstiff. Until then, stay tuned to Game Rant for more.